musician, theatrical personalities decide they want to come to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, or they want to come to Alani, I'm the person to make sure they have just as much of a magical time as you guys do. So yeah, so I have the best job at the Walt Disney Company. But I started my career at Disney. It'll be 17 years at the end of next month. I will have been here, so 17 years, really good. And they tell me I have to stay till I get it right. So I started my career as actually a producer who worked on broadcast content, and Wheel of Fortune became my client. So through that particular relationship, I got to know the guy that I brought here this morning to chat with you guys. So I want to tell you a little bit about him. He's going to tell you a lot more about him. I'll tell you this, he has won multiple Emmy Awards, right? He is the sole and only recipient of the game show host People's Choice Award. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Emmys, the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and he's in the Guinness Book of World Records, and we'll talk about that a little bit today for something pretty cool. But as you guys know, he's about to start his 40th year hosting Wheel of Fortune. Please welcome my friend, Pat Sajak. Wouldn't it have killed you to wear a tie for these people?
If anyone on God's green earth should not be making clothing jokes, it's you. I see they settled the Liberace estate.
So, I got to tell you about this. This will just take 1 second, okay? Because I didn't get a chance to tell you the story. So when I was in LA the last time,
yes,
I don't want to mention names of stores, but there's that store on Rodeo Drive where they have the fancy clothes.
Yeah.
The one where they have the sign in the window that says by appointment only. So I'm down there and I see this jacket in the window and I'm like, you know what, that'd be nice to wear for the thing with that, right? So I walk in and the woman says, may I help you? I said, yeah, I'd like to see that jacket in the window. She said, do you have an appointment? I said, why, are the clothes busy? So I had to go twice to get this jacket for you.
Oh,
so a little respect for the jacket.
All right, you got it. I love it. It's a lovely, it's very nice. Tony is a flashy dresser, which is a polite word for gaudy, but that's
gaudy is me.
No.
So listen, the goal today
yes.
is I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
Okay.
This is going to be like a Barbara Walters interview because this audience wants to see you openly weeping by the end of this thing. So we're going to get to the deep emotional questions.
Yeah, that's me, all right. Go ahead.
And then, by the way, if you're nice, we'll let them ask you a couple questions too.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, they look like a friend.
Shall we begin?
All right.
You know, because I'll forget because I'm old, right? Talk about the Guinness Book of World Records because I don't have that on the card. That was a cool thing.
Oh yeah, you know it's interesting. So the show's been on, as you heard, a very long time. I'm extremely elderly now, and we were talking with some friends, and it occurred to me that I was trying to think of anyone else who has done a show, any kind of show, forget game show, longer than I have, and I couldn't think of anyone. I was thinking, we lost Alex, sadly, and I was going back to, I'm going back to early television. Who else? 60 Minutes has been on longer, but they haven't had one host. And I thought, I think I'm the longest serving host of any show in television history. So we called Guinness to order a couple of beers and to see if we could get in there. So they call us back later and said, remember, this is the Guinness Book of World Records. And apparently there's some guy in England who hosts some cooking shows that's been on for like 112 years. So they said, we can't make you so I'm the longest running host of any kind in American television, but worldwide, I'm only the longest serving game show host of anybody. So, but I'm in the current issue and by the way, Van is in there too for what some of you just started to do. She's in there for the most applauding. There you go.
Is it still fun?
Doing the show? Oh, yeah, and I wouldn't be doing it if it weren't. I mean, if you told me when we started back in the dark ages that I'd still be doing it, I would have laughed at you. People ask that all the time. They'll say, "Oh, you must be getting bored with it. You must be." To me, it gets more challenging every year, and I mean that in a good way. It keeps you engaged because the trick is, how do you do year 39 and make it still feel fresh for the audience, for all of you, for the players who are there and excited to be there, they've been waiting to be on forever. So to me, that's what I'm proudest of. I think if you watch our show and you watch me, I don't think you would think, he's getting bored with this, or well, this looks like year 39. I like to think I bring the same energy and excitement to it that I do. And I'm not, my nature, when I started in game shows, I was a little different from the more typical game show host. Back then, game show hosts were almost like those old disc jockeys. Hey, you just won $10,000, and I don't really do that. And Merv Griffin, who created our show, and I know a lot of you remember that name, and he was a great guy.
Who here remembers who Merv Griffin is?
So when he asked me, the show had been on in daytime on NBC with a man named Chuck Woolery for about 7 years, and Chuck left, and they needed another host, and I was doing the local weather in Los Angeles at the time, and Merv was a fan of mine. I mean, when you work in LA, you're kind of auditioning every day because producers are at home in their underwear watching the news like everybody else. And Merv wanted me to do it, and he called me, and I never saw myself as a game show host, and I said, Merv, I'm really flattered, but I can't do the $20,000. I can't do that. He said, no, I like the way you do it. You're kind of low-key, but I like that for the show, because the show is kind of over the top, and you'll be a nice counterpoint to that. And I must say, in all the years he owned the show, and until he passed away, he never once, he was always supportive, but never once came to me and said, why don't you do it this way, why don't you try it? He had faith in me and let it happen. So I'm always very grateful for that.
So, great. If it's for me, I'm not here. Couple trivia things, one for you and one for them. How many people here know that Merv Griffin wrote the theme to Jeopardy? How many people know?
By the way, and that was one of his great income streams of his life.
Absolutely.
If you go to a baseball game or something, they play that, and every time they played, he used to get $1.50 or whatever.
And second of all, did you know that Merv dated my mother before my mother married my father?
I think you did mention that to me.
Which means there'd be a different Tony sitting here. In fact.
Yeah, maybe we're related. No.
Yeah. Dude. How do you keep the experience fresh when you're like almost 40 years into the ballgame?
It's not that hard because it's going to sound a little corny and a little self-serving, but I actually do care about the audience. I care about the people who come on the show. It's very easy to sit at home and laugh at I can't believe he did that. That's stupid. I know that. Come on and try it. It's a completely different experience. And the people who come on their show, they know how to play it, and they watch the show, and they did well in tryouts. But you never know what's going to happen when the cameras are on and suddenly everyone's around you, and there's that puzzle board. It's not on a little TV. It's staring at you,
It's big,
20 feet high.
It's a big... And by the way, you say this a lot. And by the way, he says smart things like, sometimes. When you're at home, it's always your turn.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you don't have to think about anything. You're walking in, you're making dinner or whatever. You look up, I know what that is. Our show is different from other game shows. Let's take Jeopardy as an example. We don't have a tournament of champions on our show because the best player frequently doesn't win. There's so much luck involved in our show. And unlike most game shows, say Jeopardy, almost every question or answer in that show's case, every player has a chance to answer it or ask it. However, I get confused with Jeopardy.
Well, yeah.
But every player is involved in every turn. On our show, the only player involved in solving is the one who's actually spinning the wheel. The others just kind of have to stand there, and if they never get a chance to spin, they never get a chance to solve the puzzle. My point is that I have great empathy for the players, and I think my primary job is to get these three very nice people through this show with their dignity intact. And these days, sometimes I wonder why people even want to be on, And I mean that seriously, because with YouTube and all the social media, I mean, if you screw up, there it is for the world. And the morning disc jockeys are making fun of you the next day. So if someone makes a mistake on their show, they'd be a very easy target for me to make a joke about or something. My job when they make a mistake is to try to get them through it and try to make them forget it. And I remind them that that round is over. There's nothing you can do about it. Let's move on. It's like a baseball player making an error. You can't let it ruin the rest of the game for you. So it's a long-winded way to answer your question. It's fresh for me because every show is different, and I know the rules are the same, but you get 3 different people out there, 3 different mindsets, 3 different kinds of energy, and to me, the challenge is to somehow make that cohesive and to make them comfortable and to engage an audience at home, which you say it's been on 40 years. That's another factor. How do you keep the audience at home from getting bored? And so I like the challenge of that, and I don't know how long I'm going to do it. I mean, I'm not going to do it another 40 years. I'm pretty sure because that would set up, because I'd be 120 when I did it. But I still like it, and I still find it challenging, and I still find it fun. And the people who work on our show, as you know, we work with Disney a lot on our show. They're just the greatest folks. And if you've been on our show in staff or crew, if you've been there for 20 years, you're one of the new kids. Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of loyalty. So I love going in.
How do you prepare, or do you?
Am I banging here?
One can only hope. What?
It's Disney.
Oh, sorry. Moving on. Or do you?
What?
Prepare.
Oh. Let me see that. This is it? This is your job?
You don't get to see the rest.
It says, how do you prepare? And then in parentheses it says, or do you?
So I remember to ask the second half of the question.
I learned the alphabet every day before the show. No, there's not much.
I have to work with the guy.
Look. So this morning I put my pants on and I ruined this. And you ever put your foot through it and you take the part? Well, look, it's hanging down here. This is unbelievable. And I'm banging again. So, what was the question? No.
Hang on a second. Check, please.
Gotta fix my pants.
How do you prepare? Do you prepare?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I know the rules by now, and I know the alphabet, and I don't even meet the players before the show because I want to keep it fresh when we first talk. I don't want to go back and have a conversation with them, and then they feel like they have to repeat their answers. So I like and it's funny about players. Just before each show, as most of you know, we tape multiple shows in one day.
Did you all know that?
Yeah, so we do 6 most days. Which is great because I hardly work. So just before each show, I come down and a contestant coordinator, the people who deal with players before they actually come on the air, gives me 3 cards. Each one has a little information, so they'll tell me how to pronounce their name and go over a couple of things on the card, and that's my preparation. But sometimes I'll say, you got to be careful. Player number 2 is really shy, and we have it during rehearsal, having trouble getting them to speak up and all that. So I think, okay, I got to really work with player 2. And I get out there, and suddenly the camera goes on, and player 2 is doing handsprings. And then they'll say, player 3 is you got to hold her back. She's crazy. I mean, she just goes. And of course, we get on the air, and she's going like this. She doesn't want to talk. So you never know until you go on, until the lights go on. Everybody acts differently.
How has the show changed over the years?
More than you think. It's funny when you have a long-running show, you have to keep making change because once people start getting tired of you and start leaving, it's real hard to get them back. But the trick is to make changes that don't alienate your regular viewers, and so it's a real delicate balancing act. Our shows premiere, I guess, this coming week.
Yeah.
The new shows for the new season. And there are a lot of changes this year. The set's a little different.
You guys are going to like the changes. We just taped the Disney Week last week. You guys.
Yeah, I think you will. But change is hard for people to absorb, and it takes a while to get used to a new set. We brought back old music. You know that the Wheel of Fortune thing, da, 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 da. That's what people think of the Wheel of Fortune thing. We haven't had that theme in 20 years. We had a new theme that no one could hum. And I defy you to say what it is. But we managed to buy back the old one, so that's coming back. The set looks a little different. I think you'll like it. And a couple of minor changes in the. I'm going to give you a little preview of a change. No one knows this yet. I don't give the wheel a final spin anymore.
Which I think is it's so cool. I saw it when we taped last week.
Yeah, and I've always hated the final spin because I'm the host. I shouldn't be insinuating myself in the game, and sometimes what I land on affects who's going to win and who's going to lose. I've always hated. We've always looked for a way around it, and the solution was so simple. Basically, whoever's turn it is when that sound goes off, saying we're running short of time, I say you're controlling the wheel. You'll give it the final spin. So a player spins it now, and besides. At my age, I don't have to bend over anymore.
Let's talk about the family a little bit because there's a next generation Sajak who we were talking about it before. You know, I've had the privilege to watch become an extraordinary young woman. Who's part of the show now.
We have Leslie and I. Leslie's in here somewhere.
Mrs. Sajak is here somewhere, I believe.
Yeah, I don't want to embarrass her because she's too beautiful. Just subtly, where are you, Leslie?
She was here. Oh, there she is.
Oh, she's hiding in the corner over there. There she is. Anyway, we have two grown children. Our son Patrick is 30 now, and he is Dr. Sajak.
Dr. Sajak. How about that?
He graduated from medical school, and as he said now, when I call him, he said, "Why aren't you calling me doctor?" So that's number one. Our daughter Maggie made her first appearance on Wheel when she was less than 1 year old. We were in Hawaii, and she came out with me one night, and she's been on there sporadically. And I had a little illness issue a couple of years ago, and Vanna filled in for me. I don't know how many of you remember this, but she did a couple of weeks for me. And one of those weeks, Maggie, our daughter, did the puzzle board and did a nice job. So she did such a good job. I get a call from Wheel one day that they would like to hire her as their social correspondent for their Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff. So she's just begun that, and she's doing a lot of stuff. So if you go online, you'll see a lot of and she does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. She gave our viewers a tour of my dressing room, very exciting. We have some celebrity shows coming up, and she's interviewed all the celebrities after the show. So she enjoys doing it, but she's great. I said our son's a doctor, our daughter is going to law school, so we are going to have a doctor and a lawyer. They can sue each other. But she's great. I mean, she graduated from Princeton, and she did a post-bac program at Columbia, and now she's going to Georgetown Law School, and she's doing this Wheel thing. So we're very proud of her.
So of course, for me, the second I heard that Wheel asked Maggie to do this, I call him. I go, "I'm begging you, please let me make her deal. Please let me make her deal." No, they wouldn't.
No, sorry.
I tried. How long have you and Vanna been secretly married? Who?
Didn't I just introduce my wife? Early on, we got that question a lot, not so much anymore, but we've not been secretly married. Actually, it's been a great relationship because she's a little like me in that she takes the show seriously, she takes her job seriously, but she doesn't take herself too seriously. And sometimes I shudder when I think about who they could have hired and who have gotten their big heads over their success. I mean, when the show back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, Vanna was on the cover of everything, and she, when you ask her what she does for a living, she doesn't say, "Well, I'm a performer and I'd like to direct one day." And she says, "Hey, I touch letters and they light up." So how can you beat that? And so that's been great because it's been a really good relationship. We don't see a ton of each other outside. Leslie and I and Vanna and her boyfriend. Sounds odd for an older woman, but boyfriend. We'll go out to dinner occasionally. But she's obviously I've known her longer than I've known my wife, and we get along just great. She's fun to work with.
She's a terrific woman.
Yeah.
Why is the show successful?
If I could tell you that, I'd be out creating other shows, and that would be. And nobody knows for sure. It's a very strange thing. I mean, it's a good, solid game. I get that, but we're playing hangman out there, which is honestly, we're spinning.
Right?
That's it. I mean, why this is translated into 40 years of success, it's very hard to tell. But I do know this, that somewhere along the line, we became more than a successful television show. We became a part of people's lives and a part of the popular culture. Even if you don't watch our show every day, and most people don't watch it every day, they think they do, but they watch it once a week, twice a week, whatever. I liken it to the sunset. You may not go out and look at it every day, but you know it's there, and that's kind of comforting to people. And we're sort of a throwback show. You know, television, entertainment in general has gotten pretty dark and pretty mean and pretty nasty. And I'm not putting down, some of these shows are real good, these dramas that are on Netflix and all that, but they're really dark. And we're not, you know, we're sort of a refuge from that. And it's a show that you can sit your family around the television set. Nobody gets embarrassed. Nobody gets voted off. Nobody gets humiliated. And I think people like that. And the other thing that happens when you've been on the air a long time, it becomes a very evocative show. It takes people back to happier times, better times. Almost every day someone will come up to me, often with tears in their eyes, and say, you know, I just lost my grandma, but I used to sit and watch the show with her growing up, and now I'm watching it with my kids, and I'm very proud of that. I think that's the thing I like most now, that we've connected with people. And no one intended this. I mean, we intended to be a successful show and make a lot of money and go home. Instead, we've become part of the culture and part of people's lives, and I'm, as I say, I think that's the thing I'm proudest of.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it's referred to this way, but I think it truly is America's game, right? I mean, it's
been a little different during this pandemic. We've had to have more California people on because people weren't traveling, but we're getting away from that this coming season. I'm happy to say we're having more people from around the country, but there was a time when you watched TV game shows, it looked like everyone just stepped off the beaches of Southern California, because they did. We've always, in our history, made a really concerted effort to be America's game. And our contestant people would go out at least once a month and go to another city and go to a place like this and try out people and try to find people. I mean, when you watch our show, you get people of all sizes and all types and all ethnicities. And it is America's game in that sense. And I think people sense that when they watch. They think, that could be me. It's not, some model sitting up there. It's, it's a regular person. And we have people from all walks of life. We have doctors and lawyers, but we have truck drivers and electricians and people who wait tables and all that stuff. And what I like is, I was talking about how dark television is. How dark life is getting in many ways. We've lost the ability to communicate with each other. We're calling each other names. We're judging people on who they vote for, where they live, what they look like. It's a tough time in that regard. And for me to go in every day, if we do 5 shows, I meet 15 people from around the country, and I'm telling you, they're all really nice people. They don't care about all the stuff that everybody's fighting about. They pull for each other. They're happy when another person wins. They're happy to have that experience. And to me, it's kind of heartwarming. To know that America is still a really cool place. But if you spend a lot of time on Twitter or watching these political shows, you think we're all at each other's throats. And most people aren't. They want to get on with their lives, they want to raise their families, and leave us the heck alone.
Anybody who knows you as well as I do know that you are one of the warmest people on the planet. It's always a contest whether you or Mrs. Sajak are the warmer of the two.
Well, I am a little warmer than my wife, but not. We have Tony is pulling my leg just so that thing will come down. I wouldn't call it a fight. The only contentious part of our marriage is that one day I made a claim that I was warmer than my wife, and of course it's not true. But she was appalled that I would even think that for a moment. And you don't think I'm terribly warm? Don't I seem warm to you?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you know the unwarm side. Well, you know, we're guys and we sit around.
Yeah.
You
So
know, guys.
there's a method to what we're doing because we're leading up to like some exciting news that's coming. You guys are going to get to hear something first and see something that's really
He's
cool.
taking over the show.
And you get to take over artist relations at Disney. It's like, talk about when things go wrong on the show.
Well, they do occasionally. You know, we're a pretty well-oiled machine. We're talking about doing 6 shows, as we often do, and you think, my, what a long day. But honestly, we start about noon, and by 6 o'clock, 6 hours later, we've done 6 shows.
And lunch.
And lunch in there. Because our people know what they're doing. I mean, they technically it's as I say, a well-oiled machine. But still, things go wrong. Technically, a letter will burn out or a light will go or something, and then sometimes our players will get us in a little bit of a bind, or we mishear a letter, a solve, and we have to go back and fix it. So it happens from time to time, but not all that often. Yeah. We're pretty smooth. You've been there for.
Yes, I mean it usually is very quick. What bothers you most about the job?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Barbara Walters.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Not a whole lot. I was talking about the players earlier and how much I care about them and want them to do well. Probably 5 times a season. This is just between us, okay? 5 times a season, there's a player on that I want to strangle. Not enough to kill them, but maybe to have them lose consciousness. Honey, this is my warm side. And I'll tell you what kind of player that is. And I don't mean a player who makes mistakes, because it happens to all of us. If I were up there, I'd be screwing up too. But every now and then you get someone who is there for the wrong reason. They want to be a hoot and show to their friends that they're on the show, and they want to be performers, and they're not much interested in the game. They're interested in showing how clever they are, and I don't like that, and so I always root against them, and they always end up winning, which really annoys the heck out of me. I've learned you know, every now and then you get a player you really like. There's a real connection there, and you really want them to do well, and inevitably that nothing happens for them. So I try not to root for anybody or against anybody. But as I say, 3, 4, 5 times a year, there's someone that if there were an ejection seat, I would have them.
All kidding aside, a privilege. We get to spend a lot of time together, and you do get recognized quite a lot. And I did ask your permission for you to tell this story, because it is my favorite story about you in public. I think it was
a ball game?
It was a national sport.
Yeah. So my son is a big baseball fan, as am I. Baseball and hockey are the family sports, and by the way, in Florida's had some. I mean, you got the Lightning, and you got the Bucks, and you got the Rays, who are amazing. I love the Rays. What a great success story they have. Anyway, we digress. So we're at a Washington Nationals game, and my son and I are there. And we're sitting about 5, 6 rows up from the visitors' dugout, and we'll watch the game. And the game ends, and I said to him, you know, let's hang around for a little while, let the crowd thin out, and then we'll go. So we're standing there, and when you've been in this business for a while, you learn, you peripherally, you can see when someone's approaching you, who your mic went out, I think. Or you can do a song. I've heard him sing. Trust me, you don't want him to do something. So I said, let's wait a minute for the crowd. And as I say, you can tell when. And there was this group of 4 or 5 young girls approaching, and I'm happy to do anything they like. So we're talking, and they come over and said, you know, would you mind taking a picture? And I said, no, of course not. So they go, but normally when you say that, they would get right next to you, and then they'd ask someone else to take the picture. Instead, they moved a couple of rows ahead of me toward the field and were looking up at me, and I thought, I'm too old, I'm not going to crawl over the seats, you guys get up here. And so there's this awkward moment trying to figure the whole thing out, and my son leaned over to me, Dad, they want you to take their picture. That's right. No idea. Just when you think you're a big deal.
I apologize. I know I look like Jerry Springer, but with the microphone, they may have turned it off for a reason. I'm not sure.
It could
but so you've done some acting. You've done a couple of plays. I think one is on the books for next summer again.
Yeah, I have. I have a dear friend who lives out in Hawaii. I was in Vietnam for a couple of years and in the Army, and I made a good friend back then. And he 50 years later, he's still a close friend. He's a newscaster out in Hawaii. And years ago, we said, and he's an actor and he writes plays and everything. And we bemoaned the fact that we never had a chance to work together. He said, well, let's do a play together. So some years ago, almost 20 now, we did Odd Couple together. And since then, every 2 or 3 years, I go over there, and we've done it in other cities, but usually I go to Hawaii, because first of all, if you stink in Hawaii, who cares? And I love doing it. It's a fun exercise. Actually, we're doing, next summer, we're doing Sunshine Boys. I'm old enough to do that now.
Yeah, the best part is, I get to go to Hawaii to see it. It's part of my job.
Yeah. Tony's been a loyal. Well, so I've done. Can I talk about?
Well, I was going to say the other thing you've done that was really cool.
So I have another friend who is a world-renowned conductor of orchestras, and again I've known him for 40 plus years. And same thing, gee, we never get to work together. You're a conductor, or a host. How can we ever work together? So he went out and he had a composer friend of his record an orchestral accompaniment to the Casey at the Bat famous poem.
Everybody know Casey at the Bat? It's fantastic.
It looked extremely rocky for the Mudville Nine. So it's a great piece. It's about 8 minutes long, and so I would go out with orchestras. I did it with the Dallas Symphony, with the Florida Symphony, several other orchestras around the country, and I would do Casey at the Bat. And then later on in the program, I would conduct a number, and you know, pretty standard stuff, Stars and Stripes, the William Tell Overture, and all that stuff. And I have a sense of rhythm, and it works real well. And I got to tell you, by the way, the greatest high in the world you can have, trust me, is to stand on the stage, drop the baton, and 80 world-class musicians do this wall of sound that you feel like God. And now I understand why conductors are all megalomaniacs, because it's so anyway, we're doing a show one day in Southern California, and I'm at the Pacific Symphony, I guess. And same thing, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to conduct. And Martin Short, the comedian, was there doing a bit. He does a character called Jiminy Glick, who interviews celebrities. And so we're going to do a bit there. So Tony's going to come see the show. So I leave tickets for Tony and Leslie, my wife, and we did 2 shows in 2 nights. The first night you weren't there. Second night Tony comes, and so the show's over, and they come backstage, and I say to Tony, as I always say when I said, I hope the seats are good, and you said, no. They put him in like the back row.
So you folks back there, raise your hands. Yeah, that's about where we were.
And I felt terrible about that, and you've never let me forget it.
I said, and never will.
No.
So this is timed perfectly, because we're going to make the big exciting announcement of something really cool. You guys are going to be the first to hear it. And then we're going to take some questions from the audience, and then we're going to lunch because I'm starving.
Okay. By the way, it would help if all the questions were multiple choice.
So you got a phone call from a legendary Hollywood casting director a few months ago about a fantastic new project that was. This person has a long, storied career in casting.
Yeah.
It was me.
Yeah.
So guys, premiering on Disney Plus on October 8th is a brand new special. You're going to love this. You'll get it from the second you hear the name. It's called Muppets Haunted Mansion. And I had the privilege, seriously, all kidding aside, I had the privilege of casting it. I also lead all the talent issues for the Muppets as part of my job. And it's an amazing cast. We've released none of the cast. We haven't announced any of it. But I'm happy to tell you today that Mr. Sajak is in the cast. And you are going to be the first people in the world to see an image of him in the movie.
I haven't seen it either.
right now, if they'll put it up on the screen. I don't know what to say. You look stone-faced to me. Thank you very much. I've been waiting for a month to say that.
By the way, that's the extent of my performance. So it's a very small but unpivotal role.
So, guys, please make sure that you watch it on Disney Plus. I've seen the movie; it is terrific. It's got an all-star cast. You'll see on social media we're announcing the rest of the cast, but wanted you guys to have the first look.
It was great fun. I used to gripe to Tony, sort of half joking. I said, "How come I haven't been in a Disney project? Why haven't I been in?" And I finally bugged him so much he made me a bust.
Can we answer some questions for you nice folks? Has anybody got something?
Hold on, someone's going to grab a microphone there.
And if you would say your name first, where you're from, and your Visa card number.
Hi, I'm Ayana, and I'm from Tampa, Florida. Hi. So I was wondering if you could share any guest interactions that have just stayed with you over the years, that are just your favorite guest interactions over the years.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of them, and you know, we've been on for so long, sometimes you forget about some. I said, one of the sweetest things that ever happened on our show, we had a military week. I don't know if it was Veterans Week or something, but anyway, we had all military people on the show, or former military people. And there was one guy who was on, and you could tell from his demeanor and the way he talked that he was having kind of tough times. He had just gotten out of the military. You know, he talked about looking for work and all that. And you could tell life was not going well, and he wouldn't mind winning a little money on the show. You know, normally you encourage people, just come on, have fun. If you win, you win. But you could tell that was an issue. Anyway, there was a young lady on the show who was also in the military, and she was a terrific player. And she was just cleaning everybody's clock. She was winning everything in sight. So we're getting to our last round, and this woman who'd won everything, it's her turn to start the round. And she calls, first letter out of her mouth is an X. What the heck? And obviously there was no X in the puzzle. And we go, and then it comes back to her, and she goes a Q. And I suddenly hit me. She didn't want to win anymore. She knew she was going to the bonus round, and she wanted this guy to win something. And he did. He won, not a ton, he won $4,000 or $5,000, but for him, it was manna from heaven. And so we go to commercial, and we go over to get ready at the bonus round with this young lady, and I said, "You blew that round." And off camera, I wouldn't want to embarrass her on the air. I said, you blew that round. And she said, "Yeah, I had enough," you know. And I thought, I mean, I talked earlier about what a great country this is, and filled with great people, and there's an example. Thanks for having me.
I'm originally from Sorno Park, Maryland. Live down here now.
Yeah,
Maryland.
yes, we hang out in that area a lot, as you know.
Steve, what did your family like to watch Disney movies when they were kids?
Wow, my kids, our daughter especially, was a big Disney Channel person, and she would all those, and I can't even name any of them now, but
It's probably Miley Cyrus's show.
yeah.
Hillary Duff's show and all those.
Yeah, exactly. She loved those shows and would watch those a lot. We were lucky enough to, when they were real little, we were lucky enough to get invited to Disney premieres, and that's always really exciting to go to a Toy Story premiere, you know, and walk on the red carpet with your 3-year-old.
Have you been invited any recently?
No, but am I invited to the Muppet premiere? I'm in the darn thing.
I think so. Later on the back.
But yeah, I mean, we've been a Disney family all our lives, and so yeah, that was that. Who else? Are we jumping over here?
I think we're going left to right. Okay. Really should have.
Hello, so I'm Megan. I'm from Long Island. I just moved to Orlando 2 years ago. For the final bonus round, why do you choose the letters R, S, T, L, N, E?
We do that because they are statistically the most common letters in the alphabet. And when we first started doing the bonus round, years ago there wasn't even a bonus round. We started doing it, and people would choose letters. They would inevitably choose those letters. So it kind of got a little boring and repetitive. And also because everyone was choosing those letters, it would be easy for us to sort of rig the puzzle, favorably or unfavorably, by not including a lot of those or including a lot of those. So we decided just to give them those letters to start with, and then force them into picking something a little more exotic. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Andy. I live here in Florida. I'm also a cast member at Walt Disney World. And
Right.
My question for you is, with your career, when you said you were like a weather person and up to where you're, can you draw any like inspiration you've like taken from like other talent? Like, have you ever had any inspiration in your life where you looked up to?
Yeah, I can do it very specifically. When I was a kid, long before all these late night hosts, long before Jay Leno, long before Johnny Carson, and I'm just trying to think of folks who would know this name, Jack Paar was the host of The Tonight Show. And I was, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, something like that. And I just thought he was the best. And I loved him. And by the way, I got to know him later in life and became a dear friend, and that was exciting for me. But he made me think I wanted to be in television. I wanted to be in broadcasting in some way. If I ended up as a disc jockey in Cleveland, I would have been happy. So obviously it worked out better than I'd hoped. But early on, it's, while other kids were looking at other careers, a fireman or whatever they want to be, I wanted to be in broadcasting, and a great measure had to do with Jack. I'll tell you that.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Hi. I used to watch with my grandpa, and we would watch and figure out what the contestants were going to buy at the end. I want the dog. And we would always say, time for the dog, time for the dog.
The ceramic Dalmatian.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a name. We named him Sheldon because the guy we bought prizes from, sort of the prize broker, his name was Sheldon. And by the way, I have a ceramic Dalmatian at home. It's turning a little yellow, but I do have.
Yeah.
It's funny. People talk about, you're referring to the shopping days. I don't know how many remember that, but years ago, you didn't win money. You won some cash with which you could buy cheesy prizes on our show. So. And I know nostalgically, those were fun days, but I'm telling you, trust me, those were the most boring 2 minutes in television. The little circle would be with the woman's head inside going, trying to decide whether she wanted the cocktail table or the lamp. It was not exactly riveting television. But at the end, when you had like $100 left, what do you get? So they'd end up with the ceramic Dalmatian.
So I guess we'll take a couple more because time is running short.
Hi Pat, my name is Lania, and I own the Arthur Murray Ballroom Dance Studios in Clearwater and Tampa, so I'm a ballroom dancer.
Okay.
And it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. And I was wondering if you could talk about your time before being a weatherman, the jobs that you had that were when you were a young man.
Yeah, I'll run through it real quick. My go-to job when I couldn't get work in broadcasting, for some reason, was hotel work. I was a front desk clerk in Chicago at the Palmer House, in Washington D.C. at the Madison.
Were you warm?
No, it wasn't even warm then. And I worked at a Howard Johnson's in Nashville, and I had worked at a couple of little tiny. My first radio job was at a foreign language radio station. I knew a guy who was a broadcaster in Chicago, and he knew I was interested in, and I'd never worked before, and he said, I know this guy at and he mentioned this radio station. I grew up in Chicago. I had no idea what this station was he was talking about. As I was driving, and I tried to find it on my dial, I couldn't even find it. It was a 250-watt station. But he said, go in and talk to this guy. They need a rip and read newscaster, which means you go to the teletype machine, you rip off the headlines, and once an hour, for 5 minutes every hour, here's the latest news from Associated Press, and you'd read this stuff. That's what they needed. So I go in, I talk to the guy, hires me. You're starting tonight at midnight. I worked from midnight to 6. He said, when you get here, you'll meet the disc jockey who's on the air at the time. You're going to do the news every hour. That's all he told me. True. I show up that night. The station is locked up tight at like 11:30 at night. There's nobody there. Finally, a car pulls up around 11:45, and a Hispanic fellow gets out. Didn't speak English real well. I'm trying to communicate. I didn't know if he worked there. I didn't know if he was, if he was robbing the place. I didn't know what was going on. I know he thought I was robbing the place. Anyway, so through broken communication, I figured out he was the disc jockey. It turns out he was doing a Spanish radio program from midnight to 6 a.m. He spoke Spanish. They did Spanish commercials. And I did the news in English every hour. And the only time I knew the only way I knew it was time to do the news, he'd go, I don't speak Spanish very well, but no, DC, said that, Sajak. I'd hear my name, and then I'd start reading. To this day, I don't know why I did that, or why the guy didn't tell me that I was going to be working on a Spanish program. So those are the exciting times of my early life.
And I apologize to the folks in line. I'm told I don't make the rules. One last question. I think we're going back to this side, so I apologize wherever we left. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Mike, originally from New York. I have a question about, do you ever get frustrated when people don't pick up the hints you're trying to give them? For example, you say that hey, you have $1,000, you could buy a vowel, you spin the wheel.
It's funny, we talk about that a lot.
It's funny you say that. The most misunderstood strategy on our show is buying vowels. Why do people buy vowels? Trust me, if you don't buy vowels, you're not going to win anything. It's the nature of the beast. It feels like they're throwing away money, but if you got a big puzzle up there, there's a pretty good chance one of those vowels is going to be in there, and if you miss it, so what? It's $250. But instead, they just pick some consonant out of the air, hoping it's going to be there. It makes no sense. It's 1 in 21 with consonants and 1 in 5 with vowels. Anyway, yeah, I do get frustrated because if you listen to me carefully, if players would just listen to what I tell them, they would do fine because I kind of cue them, you know. I emphasize, you know, especially when there's one vowel left and they don't know the puzzle. You know it's in the puzzle. Call the darn U and you'll figure it out. So, but you know, but again, I don't really get angry because you know they're so worried about making a mistake and doing something wrong and all that kind of stuff. So, but I do. But you're pretty good to catch on to that. Yeah, if they would just pay attention to me, they would do much better. But sometimes they forget I'm there.
One of my favorite parts of the show is the last 30 seconds where you do a little banter with Vanna, and invariably she shakes her head like,
yeah, what's he doing now? Yeah, I know. We have great fun doing that, and here's the way it works. So, you have to go to the bathroom, or you?
It's my way of giving a subtle hint.
Okay. But I do, you know, we talk at the end of the show, maybe 20, 30 seconds, but we never know until the very moment we go on whether we have 20 seconds or we have a minute. And so we try to, people ask if we write that stuff. I said, first of all, it'd be a lot better if we wrote it because obviously we don't. But out of 5 shows, probably 3 are pretty funny or interesting and some are kind of boring. But when you multiply that by 40 years, Vanna and I have had a lot of conversation on the air. And I think people like it. I think they like the interplay, and I jab her a little bit, and she gets me a little bit. And that's one of my favorite parts of the show, too. We have to stop.
Well,
Can we do another hour?
So I have a little bit of
Okay.
I have a little bit of housekeeping to do.
All right.
So
in that jacket? Okay.
you know, I'm the one who controls if he gets tickets to the park or not. I just want to remind you.
Sorry.
Folks, and I really should come to rehearsal. Stephen Amos, Stephen Amos from Give Kids the World. So there is a autograph and photo session with Mr. Sajak, and guys, there is a charge, but every penny of it goes to Give Kids the World. So every penny. And it's at, can you yell the time, please? Okay. So that's good. So please come out and say hi, and you can pay to Give Kids the World to get a photo and an autograph. I'll pay you to take one of me. And by the way, guys, you are supporting maybe the greatest charity in Central Florida. So bless you. So thank you guys for joining us this morning. As I say, every time you and I get to do one of these things, my friendship with you has been the best part of working on Wheel.
Back at you. Thank you. Thank you all very much.